again, probably one of the most important questions in everyone's mind is, what is the cost of the project going to be? What's the approximate cost for the town of Abington? And how does it impact all of the residents within the town? Total project cost is $96.4 million. And while that certainly is not a small number, when we were at the most recent MSBA board meeting to receive approval to proceed to phase 3 of the feasibility process, there were 2 other towns that were there receiving approval at the same time. And those towns were Holbrook, which is proposing to build a brand new pre-K through 12 facility, so one compound that would house their entire student population. And Plymouth is actually building their second new high school in the past 5 years. Both of those projects will serve fewer students than Abington's new proposed middle high school. And they came in, the cost is both $5 and $10 million greater than the cost of Abington's project, respectively. So, we've been very diligent in understanding that, while very, very important, we recognize the impact of the cost of a project, and we've really done our best to make sure that, we're being as economically feasible as possible. The cost of the town of Abington is approximately $46 million. The state will be contributing close to $50 million to the total project cost. The MSBA is very good about publicizing what they're contributing to the cost of a project. And you may very well see figures out there from the MSBA that they're contributing 58.97% of the project cost. That's the amount that they will be contributing. We picked up some additional reimbursement points for green construction. Our building is going to be LEED Silver certified, which means that there's a tremendous amount of green technology implemented. Things from rainwater catch basins that'll be on the roofs and be utilized in the urinals and the restrooms to save on water efficiency, to daylighting, so lights that will dim if it's a really bright day outside, and lights that will get brighter again if it's a darker day or overcast. So we picked up an additional 2 percentage points there. We picked up an additional 1.3 percentage points of reimbursement from the MSBA for the way that the buildings have been maintained. And I think anyone could argue for a community that has some of the oldest school buildings in southeastern Massachusetts, that in order for us to still be able to provide the quality education that the faculty does, they've invested a lot of time and effort into make sure the buildings were well maintained, and that was recognized by the MSBA, and they gave us some additional funding as a result of that. The actual cost, when you look at the total project cost as well as what's reimbursed, works out to be closer to about 52%. And the reason being for that is the MSBA has a couple caps that are built into their formulas. So they'll only reimburse up to $287 per square foot, while current construction costs are running closer to about $330 per square foot. So the town does need to pay the difference in that construction cost. And also they cap site cost improvements to 8% of the total project cost. The reason for that is at one point early on they would participate in the entire site improvement costs. They were getting a lot of pushback from urban communities that did not have space to build playing fields, saying, you have these school systems and rural communities that are building 4 and 5 playing fields. We in Boston can't build a playing field. Why should they get to get that money and we don't? So there is a site cost cap there, and that's what accounts for the variance between the approximately 59% that the MSBA will advertise that they're funding, and the actual 52% or so that we'll actually be receiving from the MSBA. That equates to somewhere in the neighborhood of $2.04 to $2.18 per $1,000 of your assessed value, or $573 to $612 per year, respectively. Those figures, the $573 to the $612, are based upon The average assessed value, we're utilizing the average assessed value of homes in the town of Abington. The average assessment is $281,000. While that is the average, there's actually 2/3 of the residential homes in Abington that are actually assessed less than that $281,000. There are a number of neighborhoods, and I'm sure you could probably all think of them, in the town that are actually significantly driving up that average of 281. So 2/3 of the taxpayers will be paying actually less than the figure of 573 to 612. And the reason that number still remains to be determined is until our good friend Leo goes out and procures funding for the project, should it be approved, we don't know what the interest rate will ultimately be. A similar community, West Bridgewater, went out, they procured funding for their project at a rate of 3.3. That was several months ago, so we're not delusional to think that we're going to get a rate of 3.3, but we think that 4% is a reasonable estimate, and 4.5% is probably a relatively conservative estimate given the current rate environment. And that's the differential between that 573 and 612 tax impact number.
Rich, our town treasurer, Leo Provost, is here, and I just asked him if he could kind of go a little further about the previous question about the timetable. If the town does vote for this proposal this fall, what his procedure is and when you'd actually see a tax increase.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Earlier on, I heard Richard say that this project would begin in late 2015. If that's the case, then as soon as they put a shovel in the ground, my sense is that the best thing to do would be to borrow approximately 75 to 80% of the amount of money that the town is going to need. So that would be 75 or 80% of $46 million. The reason I say that we should rush to borrow the money is because rates have been historically low for the longest time, and there's no telling how long they're going to continue to stay low. So I'd want to jump on that immediately. Now, if we did borrow in late 2015, that is what's considered to be the town's fiscal year 2016. The fiscal year, town's fiscal year, runs from July 1st to June 30th of every year. So if we borrowed money in fiscal 2016, you would see the first principal and interest payment occur in fiscal year 2017. Now, the fact that I said that we would borrow approximately 75 or 80% of the money means that that first payment would technically be less than what you've been shown on those charts, because those charts represent borrowing $46 million. Then the project would continue on. We wouldn't finish up for 2 more years. Over that time, we would have a little bit more debt roll off our books that relate to other buildings and windows and roofs and things of that nature, before we then go to borrow the remaining portion of the money that we need to fund this entire project. When we do that, hopefully rates would still be low, and we would complete that borrowing, and then that would roll into your taxes. But again, the sum of what we borrowed earlier and that second borrowing would still be less than the charts that you've seen up there. Any questions on that?
Can you just explain the difference between a debt exclusion and an override?
Yes. A debt exclusion is still requires approval of the taxpayers through a ballot vote town-wide, but it's only allowing the town to raise the taxes for the length of term that we've bonded for the project that the debt exclusion related to. So in other words, if we build a new school and we borrow for 25 or 30 years, we're increasing the taxes to cover the principal and interest needed to pay each year for that length of time, and then it rolls off the books. An override is a permanent increase to the taxes. So if somebody voted for a 2.5% override, and that increased the tax base. That would stay in the tax base forever unless you had an underwrite. Correct. This project relates to a debt exclusion. So the borrowing is only for the purpose of paying the principal and interest associated with the borrowing of the money needed to pay for the school.
How's Abington's bond rating?
How's that?
What's house bond rating?
Right now, our bond rating is a AA, and there are only 2 levels higher than that. There's a AA+ and a AAA. So we're in very good shape right now for borrowing purposes.
I have 2 questions regarding the debt exclusion. Now, we'll be paying off in 2017. We'll be paying off in 2017 for the town hall and the library project. Have you already deducted that payoff amount to come up with the $600?
No, we haven't, but I will tell you that I did a calculation. I did it, all the numbers that we've used so far to produce the charts that you've seen up there are based on FY14 numbers. It's the only available numbers so far. In December, we'll have FY15. And what I mean by that is the town's assessed value of the entire property, taxable property, is an FY14 number. The tax rate that we're looking at is an FY14 number. So you just have to bear that in mind. It's the best available information. So using that, I looked at the amount of debt that's going to roll off between now and FY17, and I looked at what was that principal and interest in FY14. And I ran some charts, and the negative number, I believe the average home would be a reduction of $126. So you can almost, in your head, net that together with the numbers that have been showing you up there, and you'd be paying a lower number. I will caution you, however, that number, that debt is rolling off each year, and so you might not see it real clearly in your tax rate because it's coming off as we approach FY17, and it's dropping off gradually. But in actuality, you raise a good point. We want to increase by $578, whatever that number was. I'll use 600 for ease of calculation. But yet you can almost say, well, I have to reduce that number by $128. So the net effect is. It is. It is.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And
Yep.
another question on the debt exclusion. Are there any other town projects currently on anybody's plan to go up for another debt exclusion that would increase taxes that we're unaware of at this time?
The only other approved debt that we have right now is for a ladder truck. It's $1,200,000. Right now, it is not structured as a debt exclusion. I do not know how that will come out. Obviously, if that were to be a debt exclusion, the selectmen would have to be involved in that, and the taxpayers would have to be involved in that. But right now, it's on the books as needing to be paid for out of the levy. You're welcome.
Great questions. Thank you very much.